Hey guys, welcome to another video. On this one, I want to talk about a penny stock called Zomedica, ticker symbol ZOM. And this one is a request that I had by a member on my Patreon. What I do on Patreon is every weekend on Saturdays or Sundays, I post a list of my top 20 penny stock picks. And they come from a particular screening methodology that I've developed over the years. I'll link a video here that describes my approach to screening these penny stocks to try to find the best picks. So, I post these every weekend, and on my Patreon and on my Discord, we talk about these things and that kind of thing. I had a member ask me specifically about Zomedica. It's not one of the ones that appeared on my penny stock screener, but it absolutely could have. It fits my general criteria pretty well. And so I decided I'd take a look at it. And it's an interesting story. I found out a lot about this one, a lot of surprising things. So I'd like to tell you what I found out. I'd like to describe the business, the product, the opportunity, the risks that I see inherent to this one. And at the end, I'll give you my overall recommendation on whether I think this one is a good buy or not. So let's check it out. Okay, so basically the business model here is that these guys are attempting to solve a very common problem in veterinary practice, which is the time it takes to get these diagnostic tests done on an animal in the veterinary office. Typically what happens is you have to send out samples to a lab, and it takes a significant amount of time to get those lab results back in, and you can actually figure out what's happened. So in the meantime, your patient has been taken home. They've waited a week. You finally get the results. You have to call them, follow up. You miss them. They have to come back in, schedule another appointment. So it sort of delays the length of time that you have to actually implement a treatment. And sometimes it can actually be too long in the case of a more urgent thing that you need to actually treat the animal for. So Zomedica has a solution for that. They have 3 products in the pipeline at various stages of development that are meant to solve this problem in terms of analyzing samples on site without having to send them out to a lab and wait and get the results immediately. And they're targeting with TrueForma, their first product in the pipeline. They are targeting gastrointestinal diagnosis of these different issues that an animal can come into. Very common problem in a vet, right? Like tons of people are taking their animal in saying, look, he's sick, he's throwing up, he's eaten something, he's gotten into some kind of poison, he's gotten into a plant, he's swallowed a slipper, whatever it is. There are a lot of these kinds of gastrointestinal problems that are tough to diagnose, right? And it leads to this sort of problem with this lab analysis. So I think they're onto something here. I think they're solving a real problem for these veterinary practices with these products, and they've got 2 more in the pipeline that are meant to target the same sorts of issues. So they're an early stage company, right? Like these products are in the pipeline. They're getting close to approval. Their first product, TrueForma, is scheduled for approval toward the end of March this year. So it's really approaching. It's getting close. And I think that they're pre-revenue right now. They're not profitable, but the idea would be that as these products get approved and they can actually develop some sales, then maybe they're going to start recognizing some significant growth. Okay, so what are the catalysts here driving the price action? So number one, the big story here coming out of 2020 is the massive increase in pet ownership, right? So all these people stuck at home, working from home, not just in 2020, but into this year and maybe into the next year. There's tons of people that are still trapped working at home. And the adoption of pets, small companion animals, dogs, cats, hamsters, gerbils, whatever it is, people are buying pets like never before, right? And so, obviously they're going to need veterinary care. The pet insurance business is booming. These folks are looking to protect themselves against massively expensive vet bills for surgeries and expensive drugs and things like that. So they're buying these insurance policies. And once these insurance policies are in place, they are much less hesitant to go to the vet, right? Because they know insurance is going to cover this. And so they feel really free to take the animal in and say, yeah, sure, listen, if it needs surgery, no problem. We've got insurance. We're good to go. So this is really great for vets, right? Their client base is expanding. These are insured services typically. And so vets are in a good position to grow. And the suppliers of medical devices, technologies, diagnostic tests like Zomedica are in a really great position position to benefit from this tailwind. I think they can capture a large part of that growth as well. So I think investors are seeing this, and a company like Zomedica is getting a lot of attention because they're potentially in a really, really great place to surf that tailwind. It's a pretty cool story. Second catalyst is the Truforma approval that's coming in March. It looks really good. All the news that's come out to date has said that, yeah, the accuracy of these tests is comparable to what we can get out of a lab. It's good enough, apparently, from early indications anyway, for use in the office, and can totally replace some of these lab settings. So if that turns out to be true and approval is granted on schedule toward the end of March, we're definitely going to see a bump in the share price, right? I think that there's always that uncertainty, right? Like in all of these companies that are looking for product approval, that uncertainty is a little bit of excitement, holds the price down. I think once you get that approval, there's a bit of a pop. Hopefully it's not a case of buy the rumor, sell the news. In this case, I don't think it is. I think that when that news pops, we're probably going to see some of that uncertainty be taken away, and we could well see an increase in the stock price. Now, speaking of that growth, if they do get that approval, Zomedica is claiming that this diagnostic market is growing at 9.8% year over year. And they claim that the total addressable market could reach 2.8 billion in 2024. So, those are good numbers, right? If they're right about that and they can recognize that growth, then they should have a nice growth catalyst underneath the share price go forward into the next couple of years. Now, the third catalyst here is that this one is getting a lot of attention. There's an unusual amount of interest on this one in social media and on forums. A lot of people are talking about it. It made the news. There was this kind of crazy story where Carol Baskins in an interview mentioned Zomedica and caused a surge in the stock price. So it's a little bit unclear as to whether this is a coordinated campaign to market the company and its stock, or maybe they just went viral. It's really hard to say, but it's absolutely a catalyst that is driving the stock price right now, and it's has to be part of what is causing this bump that they've just experienced. There's a ton of eyeballs on this one, and I think a lot of buyers are getting drawn in by the publicity that they're getting. Okay, so what are the downside risks here? Number one is when you dig into this, you find out that the diagnostic technology, this sensor that they're using, is not entirely theirs. It's actually something that they're licensing from a company called Qorvo, and they have to pay license fees to this partner as they use their technology. Now, the overall story here is not bad. In fact, I kind of like their business model in this, right? Because you think about what's happening right now with pet ownership. People are totally willing to pay for very expensive procedures to save their pets. 50 years ago, the idea of giving chemotherapy to a dog would have been absolutely crazy, but it totally happens today, right? In fact, it's almost assumed that you're going to try to save Fido from cancer, and so the idea of spending a lot of money on pets is not crazy anymore. And so the idea of taking a technology that was originally developed for people in a clinical setting and adapting it to the veterinary market totally makes sense, right? Because there's lots of opportunity now to take these rather expensive therapies and deploy them in a setting, veterinary practices that's never been used before, and actually capitalize on that. So I like what Zomedica's done here, right? They've said, hey, give us the rights to license this technology. We'll drive it into the veterinary market. We can both make money together. Good deal. Awesome way to do it. But I think we have to be aware that this is not their technology, right? They're licensing this thing, and they're paying something like $5 million a year in licensing fees back to the originator of the technology to keep doing it. So that $5 million is a cost of doing business, right? It's going to be a drag on their profit margin go forward as they continue to pay these licensing fees. The numbers here are a little slim in terms of the total addressable market. So 2.8 billion sounds like a really big number, and it is. But when you look at the current market cap of the company, as I record this video, they have a market cap of about 846 million. Given that the total addressable market is 2.8 billion, and they're only going to be able to capture a portion of that, who knows what it is, but they're a small company. They're not going to be able to capture all of that total addressable market. It's going to be a portion of it, but yet they've already run up well in advance of their ability to capture that amount of the market. So they've got a really steep hill to climb, I think, in terms of being able to justify this valuation. It's now run away from them by a fair bit. They are not without competition here. You know, there's a company called IDEX that seems to be ahead of them in a lot of ways, and so yeah, they're going to be difficult to unseat in some of these areas. So I think that's going to limit their opportunity to develop additional products and therapies and things like that. There's competition out there that's going to be difficult to, or that's going to make it difficult for them to really recognize growth. So, you know, not only are they going to have to grow into that 2.8 billion addressable market, but they're going to have to crowd out the competition that's going to be doing the exact same thing. And I think some of them, like IDEX, are further along into that process than Zomedica is. So one of the catalysts here that I think that has driven the current rise in price is the excitement, you know, the hype, the attention that's been given to this stock. I don't know what's driving it. Like I said, it could be a well-orchestrated social media campaign, let's say, or maybe it's completely accidental, right? Like sometimes there'll be a well-written post somewhere that gets a lot of attention, goes a little bit viral, and a lot of people pile in. So it could be totally organic, or it could be orchestrated to a degree. Doesn't matter, though. At the end of the day, all of the interest that's been piled into this may or may not stay, right? And I think that's the risk here, is that this story will drop off the radar in the weeks or months to come, and we could see a real slacking off in that price as it sinks down to a more fundamental valuation. So the risk is buying in now, you could be at risk of buying in at a top, which is a little bit scary. So the wrap up here, guys, is I think this is a cool little company, right? I love their idea. I love what they're doing. I love the tailwinds that they might get to experience here. I think, though, that they are a victim of way too much attention. You know, penny stocks are tricky like that, right? I think that they are very much sentiment driven, and that's totally great. I think you want the right amount of attention in a penny stock, right? You want a stream of buyers coming in, but you don't want this situation where they are sensationalized. They get way too much attention. The price runs up like crazy because remember, there's a limited supply of shares to buy here, right? So if too many people pile in and push the thing too high, then they're at risk of falling over when that interest is withdrawn. And I think that's the case here with Zomedica, right? I think that there is now more downside than there is upside potential left in this particular stock. Now, that said, you know, like when that approval comes in March, if it is approved, there could still be legs left in this thing. You know, maybe it will continue to grow. I don't know. But I just think that skew of, you know, like I say, more potential downside than there is upside would make me really cautious and make me want to stay away on this one. So guys, like I said, I post picks like this on my Patreon all the time. We talk about these stocks and we analyze them. So if you're looking for more picks like this, consider joining my Patreon. I'll put a link down in the bottom. And like I said, I post 20 of my top picks there every week. And typically I'll pick one or two of those and do more in-depth analysis on and actually post videos here on YouTube. So look out for those as well. If you don't want to miss any, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, throw this video a like, and I will see you on the next one.